The god of Revels has returned. Welcome, Burgeonites. If you're a fan of the show and you've gone through our Commander EDH deck tech videos, then you know about Xenagos, God of Revels. He's 3 and a gruel for a 6/5 legendary enchantment creature god that is indestructible. If our devotion to red and green is less than 7, he is not a creature. At the beginning of combat on our turn, another target creature we control gains haste and +X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. In the link below, you can click on the original Xenagos deck tech that was presented on this channel, and today's purpose will be to update, upgrade, and strengthen that deck tech, and this is how we're going to do it. Xenagos is going to go there. We're going to present the cards that we're taking out, and we're going to present the cards that are going to take their place. And we're going to start right with our biggins. And the first guy that's coming out, the first cut, Malignus is coming out. 3 and 2 red, his power and toughness are each equal to half the highest life total among opponents, rounded up, and his damage cannot be prevented. The tough thing about Malignus is he just has no evasion. There's no trample, there's no flying, there's no thorn elemental ability. So if he gets in play and our opponents have formidable armies in front of us, he can just get chump blocked for days without something like what's the, tap a land, tap 4, make him unblockable, or the Kessig Wolf Run. The Rogue's Passage, that's the land I'm thinking of. Without some kind of other land interaction, Malignus is just a biggin who can get chump blocked all day long. So, Malignus is coming out, and in his place is going to be the Rampaging Brontodon. Focus in on there, camera. Come on, baby. There we go. For 5 and 2 green, we have a 7/7 trampling dinosaur that whenever he attacks, he gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each land we control. So if we're casting him with 7 lands and he's attacking with Xenagos, he is going to be a massive trampling machine. And more so, his total power and toughness is going to be enough to make no creatures, quote-unquote, chump blockers. You're going to have to throw some bodies in the way so that you don't take too much damage from the Rampaging Brontodon. Okay, so what do you think? Good change? Malignus out, the Rampaging Brontodon in. What do you think? Next up, the next cut, we'll say. Moonveil Dragon. For 3 and 3 red, we have a 5/5 flying dragon that gives all creatures we control fire breathing. Well, let me reframe that. I said that. I misstated that. You can tap a red, and each creature you control gets +1/+0 till end of turn. Okay. Not bad if we're playing with immense token armies and things like that. And yes, this deck does have some creatures that can provide those types of tokens, just not consistently enough to justify his presence. So the Moonveil Dragon is coming out, and he is going to be replaced with Ilharg the Raise Boar. For 3 and 2 red, we have a legendary creature, a Boar God. He's 6/6 trample, and whenever he attacks, we may put a creature card from our hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. At the end of combat, at the beginning of the next end step, we return that creature to our hand. And if he dies or is put into exile, we put him back in our library, 3rd card from the top. He was absolutely constructed to be in a Xenagos deck. And his inclusion would trump most, if not any, card in the deck right now. And it just seems to me that replacing the Moonveil Dragon with Ilharg the Raise Boar is a huge upgrade. All right, next cut. And a Tarka the World Render is coming out. For 5 red and a green, we got a 6/4 flying trampler, and whenever a dragon we control attacks, it gains double strike. So if he were to attack, he'd have double strike. So best case scenario with Xenagos is we would have a 12/10 flying, trampling, double striking dragon flying in the air. If we had many more dragons in the deck, it would be more difficult to remove a Tarka, but our number of dragons are just so limited that his shared ability is just not strong enough to justify keeping him in this deck. So a Tarka's coming out, and a Tarka is going to be replaced, again, with Dracuseth. For 4 and 3 red, we got a 7/7 flying dragon that when he attacks, he deals 4 damage to one target, 3 damage to another, and then 3 damage to a third target. So he's having 3 triggered abilities to target 3 things just from attacking, and that's not including the 7/7 flying body that he has. Dracuseth is an auto-include in the Xenagos deck and is going to take a Tarkas spot. All right, so let's take a break from the creatures and let's talk about Summoner's Pact. Whoops. Let's try to hold the Summoner's Pact. Summoner's Pact costs 0 to cast, but at the beginning of our next upkeep, we pay 2 and 2 green, and if we don't, we lose the game. It's an instant, and we search our library for a green creature card, reveal it, and put it into our hand. Okay, so in effect, we can cast this for free on our turn, search up a green creature card, put it into our hand, and then at the beginning of our next upkeep, 2 and 2 green, or we lose. This card is a little restrictive. Looking just for a green creature in a deck where some of our red and gold creatures, or colorless in that for that matter, are some of our best creatures. So, because of the limitations of the Summoner's Pact, it's going to get cut, and in its place, we're going to play Shared Summons. For 3 and 2 green, as an instance, we can search our library for up to 2 creature cards with different names, reveal them, and put them into our hand. So initially, this seems like it could be a very, very big downgrade from Summoner's Pact. However, if we line up the stats here a little bit, Shared Summons is superior in a lot of ways. For one, eventually, unless you win the game outright on the turn that you cast Summoner's Pact, you're basically going to pay 2 and 2 green for a green creature. 1 green creature. Here with Shared Summons, you're tapping 3 and 2 green, and you're getting any 2 creatures from your deck. And this is a commander deck, so it's not like you're going to have multiple copies of the same creature. So in effect, for 1 more colorless mana, we get any 2 creatures in our deck as opposed to just 1 green creature. This is better. Summoner's Pact out. Shared Summons in. All right, next up, our next cut is going to be an enchantment called Cream of the Crop. For 1 and a green, whenever a creature comes into play under our control, we may look at the top X cards of our library, where X is that creature's power. If we do, we put one of those cards on the top of our library and the rest on the bottom of our library in any order. So pretty much we're going to scry X, although we can only keep 1 on top. The only problem with this is that we have to have a creature enter the battlefield. And when we do, and it's a big one, that's a massive looking for X cards. It's just a little restrictive. I'm looking to try to have more maneuverability within a card like this. and I think we found it with Vivian's Art Bow. For the same cost of 1 and a green, we get a legendary artifact that at any time it can tap X, discard a card, tap X, tap the Art Bow, discard a card, and then look at the top X cards of our library. We may put a creature card with converted mana cost X or less from among them. Come on, camera, get in there. From among them onto the battlefield, and the rest go on the bottom in a random order. And yes, we've got some big uns, but throughout the mid to late game, this could be a game winner. And I think the reusability of Vivian's Art Bow is much stronger than the cream of the crop. Particularly because we can get it right into play versus just setting up the top card of our library. Now, granted, with the cream of the crop, we can put other things there that aren't just creatures. What do you think? You think that's a good switch? Would you put the Vivian's Art Bow in for cream of the crop? Next card on the chopping block, Cauldron of Souls, all the way back to Shadowmoor. For 5 colorless, we get an artifact that we can tap to choose any number of target creatures, giving each of those creatures persist until end of turn. This is a fantastic board wipe deterrent. This is a fantastic sidekick to sneak attack. But it's expensive. At 5, it's a little clunky. And if we go to activate it and something else were to happen, well, I don't know. Cauldron of Souls, I would rather, if I had to choose between the two of them, Cauldron of Souls versus, say, Astronomic Resonator, which was actually a comment that was made on the Xenagos video from one of the viewers. The Astronomic Resonator, I think, is a much better fit for the Xenagos deck, because we could use it to copy Xenagos' ability. We can use it to copy so many of our other creatures' abilities. And I think for what we're trying to do with this deck, I think this card makes more sense than the Cauldron of Souls. Okay, so Strionic in, Cauldron out. The next card I debated for a while. This one was tough for me to come to a resolution. It really was. And I'm not just saying that, just for the purposes of dragging on the drama, but to have a Genesis Wave come out of the deck, you better believe it has to be replaced with something that is going to be at least as powerful and potentially game-ending as a Genesis Wave can be. And if you're an EDH player and you play green, you know what this card can do. 3 green and X. Top X cards of your library revealed. Any number of permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less, they're going into play. The Genesis Wave in this deck is going to be replaced by the Finale of Devastation. For 2 green and an X, we're going to search our library or graveyard for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put that card onto the battlefield. If we search our library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X and gain haste until end of turn. With the creatures that we have in this deck in our library, potentially in our graveyard, to be able to cast this to put someone into play, giving them +X and haste, most likely flying and or trampling and or some kind of aversion with the Xenagos trigger for combat, this is almost a guaranteed win. Whereas opposed to the Genesis Wave, it's hard to not hit some beauties. Oh. And like I said, it was tough. It was tough to bring that out. But I think the Finale over the long term will play out better than the Genesis Wave. Next up, we're keeping going. We got some cards that are going in. I'm telling you, folks, we are trying to upgrade this deck. Dictate of the Twin Gods. That's the next cut for 3 and 2 red. We got an enchantment with flash that acts as a Furnace of Wrath. If a source would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double damage to that permanent or player instead. And I remember originally including this card in the deck. I was thinking to myself, I'm bending one of my basic tenets of deck building for EDH. Do not include a card that could hurt you. This card has hurt me. The double damage has come back to bite me. It has come back to cost me games, and it's got to go. I do not like, I am not comfortable with including cards that could end up hurting me in a game. So Dictate is out. In its place, the Ember Cleave. Was this equipment not perfectly made for the Xenagos deck? 4 and 2 red with a flash mechanic, with the flash keyword, and it costs 1 less for each attacking creature we control. So minimally, this is going to cost us 3 and 2 red. I'm sorry, at most this will cost us 3 and 2 red if we're attacking with just one of our biggins. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to a creature we control, which would be our Xenagos enhanced biggin. And the equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample. I really don't need to do much more convincing how this card is better than the Dictate of the Twin Gods. Next card. No one is ever tempted anymore. When the tempting offers first started, sure, there were people that were all over it. So the tempt with Discovery, I can get a land, I can get a land, she can get a land, I can get extra lands. This has now devolved into tap 3 and a green and put any land in your library into play. That's just not good enough, folks. Temp with Discovery is coming out. In its place, we are going to include the Thematic Compass. An artifact that costs 2, we can tap 3, search our library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into our hand, then shuffle our library. At the beginning of our end step, if we control 7 or more lands, transform Thematic Compass. Let's remember, this is Commander. We're going to possess more than 7 lands. And when this baby transforms, we're tapping for a colorless, and then we're tapping as a Maze of Ith. I think this is a much better card to have than the Temp with Discovery. All right, now, lastly, we're down to 5 more changes. And a couple of these changes are going to be a land for a spell. We're bringing down the land count a little bit, and I think we'll be okay doing that. I think we'll be all right. So we're bringing out a mountain, so that's coming out. And to replace the mountain, we're going to put in Savage Beating. For 3 and 2 red, played only during combat, we can pick one of creatures we control gain double strike, or untap all creatures you control and we Relentless Assault. However, we can entwine that for 1 and a red. So what this card really reads is for 4 and 3 red, creatures we control gain double strike until end of turn, and we get an additional combat phase and an additional main phase. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. After this phase, we get an additional combat phase, not an additional main phase. So it's not as exactly as I said before. I misspoke. Savage Beating could win us a game. And coming out, a forest. And to replace the forest will be a Rhythm of the Wild. Let's protect our creatures by not having them get counterspelled. Creature spells we control cannot be countered, and our non-token creatures have Riot. This is a nice sidecar buddy to Xenagos, who gives one of our creatures haste each turn. This enchantment gives any creature that comes into play the choice of having haste or a +1/+1 counter, or a +1/+1 counter. And you better believe with the number of biggins we have in this deck, we're most likely going haste all day, every day. All right, so with 2 lands out and 2 spells in, I think we'll be okay. I do. I don't think that's going to disturb the mana base that much. Last 3 are pretty self-explanatory. We're taking out a mountain to put in a Prismatic Vista. The Prismatic Vista is our fetch lands for basics. Okay. We are taking out a forest, and we are putting in a Fable Passage. We sack this, we search for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Unless we control 4 more lands, then we get to untap that land. And lastly, we take out the Mystifying Maze. This was tough to keep mana open for, because if we're playing a deck like Xenagos and we're casting such biggins, keeping 4 mana and this open just for the purposes of exiling an attacking creature, not as strong as something like a Thematic Compass that gets transformed. Okay, so the Mystifying Maze comes out and is replaced with the Yabba Maya Hollow. We tap for a colorless, or we tap a green, tap this to regenerate target creature. If we've got a biggin out there, he's going to be a target for removal. And if we have something that can regenerate him, that's fantastic, because there are not very many spells that specifically say creature cannot be regenerated. Yes, you have your Damnation. Yes, you have your Wrath of God. But there are a lot more spells that do not add cannot be regenerated. Okay. Folks, that is the Xenagos update, upgrade. What do you think? Do you feel that the cards that are being included are justified by the cards that are coming out? Are there some cards coming out that you would not take out? Why is that? Tell me in the comments. Let me know what you think. Burgeoning out. What is an MTG Burgeoning Pack War? An MTG Burgeoning Pack War is a monthly YouTube series during which combatants are randomly assigned booster packs from the same Magic the Gathering set. It will never be Dragon's Maze. The combatant who opens the most valuable rare, mythic rare, or foil will receive every rare, mythic rare, and foil opened during that video. Example: if 12 combatants pack war, then one of these 12 individuals will receive every rare, mythic rare, and foil opened during the event, based on who opened the most valuable card. If 36 combatants pack war, then one individual will receive every rare, mythic rare, and foil opened during that video. How can I participate? Go to patreon.com below and join the Pack Wars tier for $5 per month. There are only 36 slots available. Each month beginning in July 2020, X contenders will prepare for war, X being the number of eligible patrons. Each patron who joins will be eligible for the following month's Pack War, and each following month thereafter if still a patron. As the number of patrons increases, so do the potential rewards. Prepare for battle. All card prices are as stated by TCG Player Mid at the time of opening. In the unlikely event of a tie, each deadlocked combatant will receive a bonus booster pack to help break the tie. The combatant who opens the most valuable rare, mythic rare, or foil from these bonus booster packs will break the tie and be awarded all rares, mythic rares, and foils opened during the video.